Brightest blessings, everyone. I'm doing a video response to Dolly and the Black Dog. Before you're any more distracted, no, this is not a big zit. It is a bite that I got last night. So, yeah. Anyway, she did a video about the right to die, and she said that she was for it, assisted suicide until she had read someone's blog or something, slippery slope type of stuff. And now she's not so sure she agrees with it. I have to say that I have very strong opinions on this issue, and for good reasons. First of all, I believe everyone should have the right to die. I don't believe that people should be suffering in painful situations, in a desperate grasp to hold on to life that you are not going to have very much of, simply because of somebody else's beliefs. I don't expect to be held to Christianity's beliefs because I'm not a Christian. I don't expect to be held to Islam's beliefs because I am not a Muslim. I do not expect to be held or have to suffer because of anybody else's beliefs if they are not part of mine. It is a decision that I make that I have to have the consequences for, and not you, and certainly not anyone who doesn't know me from Adam, like a politician. Yeah, I know you're from Canada. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Jack Kevorkian. People call him Dr. Death. Basically, he helped those who were terminally ill, who chose not to live any more in pain, have the quality of life above the quantity of life, and he helped them in assisted suicide. And he always made it so they're the ones that had control of their life in their hands. If there was a button they had to push that had to be pushed, they pushed it. He's in prison, and I think that Dr. Jack Kevorkian should be set free, should not have had to pay for any of this stuff, and I thank the goddess every day for men like Dr. Jack Kevorkian. When my mother was ill, she had it in her papers that she was a DNR, do not resuscitate. She also had it written down that she did not want to be on machines. My mother had cancer when she died, and at that point in time, when we realized that she was not coming out of the hospital, they tried to keep her on machines. As it was, I forced that off, okay? But because of somebody else's morals and somebody else's standards, who didn't know my mother from Adam, who didn't know my family or me from Adam, my mother had to suffer until she passed. They did what they could for her. They had her on a morphine drip until she just couldn't breathe anymore. And I'm sure some people would think that that is humane. I don't. Technically, my mother suffocated to death. And if you ask me, that is a horrible way to die. You know how panicked you would get when you hold your breath past a certain amount of time, or if, God forbid, you get the wind knocked out of you and you can't breathe. It's a panic. When one person is not able to respond physically and feels that they're able to breathe just a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less, being smothered to death slowly, it's gotta be fucking scary. It's not the worst way to die, but it's certainly not the best either. And why? Why? Why did my mother have to suffer like that? Because of the morals and the standards of someone who didn't even know her, who didn't even share her same morals and standards, but yet they were able to dictate how she ended her own life. And I'm sorry, but that's fucked up. My mother couldn't get something to put her out of her misery in those final days. In that, where she could have died in one day, within an hour or less. She had to sit there and struggle to breathe, being slowly suffocated for 3 days, till she just couldn't breathe anymore, till the amount of her breaths were not able to sustain her life. And I'm sorry, but that's torture to me, especially for someone who never did anything wrong. Why couldn't I just ask for a lethal injection? Especially if that was her wishes. You know, before my mother got to be in such a state, after she had been sick with cancer and come to the realization that she wasn't going to live to see the next year, she and I sat down, and she asked me something that I don't think any mother should ever have to ask her daughter. My sister's older than me, and so she was afraid that if she were to be placed on machines and she could not speak for herself, that my sister would overrun me and keep her on life support as long as humanly possible. And that's something my mother made very clear to both of us, as she did not want. You see, my sister does not share the same beliefs that I do. Although I may want to preserve her life, I believe that it was her wishes not to be on the machines, and so therefore I believe that she shouldn't be on the machines. That was her choice. However, my sister would probably, she wasn't sure if she would do that just in a selfish way to keep her around physically as long as possible. My mother asked me if that should come to pass, if I would be willing to pull the plug. In fact, she begged me to do so. I couldn't answer her right away. I'd want her wishes to be granted. However, to kill your own mother like that, even though it was her wish? I got back with her about a week later, and I promised her I'd do so. Luckily, it never came down to that, but I would have been branded a murderer because I did what she wanted me to do with her life. How was that right? Now, I know that you say slippery slope, and then people are going to start using it because they're depressed, and, you know, oh, I want to commit suicide, my life is worth nothing. To those people, though they should have a right to do so, it is your responsibility to take responsibility for yourself. Quit being a pussy. Those people who take suicide out as a way out because they can't handle life, I look down upon you, and you might as well just fucking go. I have no sympathy for you. I've been in those situations, and I've had to fight tooth and nail to get out of that pit of despair. As others will, as you will. And if you want to use assisted suicide for that, when push comes to shove, even though I think that you should not, you never should. It is your life, and it is the consequences that you must deal with. And yes, it is my personal belief that you will have to deal with those consequences. Just because you're dead does not mean you're not going to have to deal with it. Just need to think about that before you take the easy way out. Brightest blessings.